Hey, this is Misti-Dawn with the Manamal Streaming Radio. I'm here with Seth from the band Psycle. Thank you so much for joining me today, Seth. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, you're very welcome. We really love your music, and we're enjoying playing it, and we are getting some good feedback for you, so that's always a plus.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear. That's all you want to hear.
That's right. Now, let's start off with a brief history of the band.
So the band's been around for a long time. I actually started the band when I was in college, going back, I believe we started right around 2000 with some friends of mine from college. Just started off basically, doing covers and learning the whole music thing. And it kind of evolved from there just in terms of, I really got into writing. And we've gone through a couple of different lineups. We always started out, with writing and doing original stuff, but unfortunately, it doesn't make a lot of money to start, so people start pushing down the avenue of covers and things like that. So, we've done some recordings and things like that, played a bunch of shows, but the lineup we have right now, going on a little over a year and a half, has definitely been what we wanted it to be all along, and I've been lucky enough. Our drummer Jay has been in it with me for probably about 14 to 15 years. So he's kind of been with me most of the time. So we've been very lucky with that. But this lineup is definitely what we want in terms of what we're doing with our own music.
I think you definitely have a perfect group together because your music's amazing.
Thank you so much.
Are you from a musical family?
Definitely not my mom and dad. No, musical in a way. I think my parents grew up on some great music, and my mom's side, my grandparents were a lot older, so I spent a lot of time on them when I was a little kid. And my grandfather was always humming and singing, all self-taught, and he actually had a really beautiful organ that he used to play every single night. So I think that's. A lot of it started there with just being able to listen to melodies and good songs and stuff. But my mom had such a diverse taste in music, and she really turned me on to a lot of really great bands. And my first concert when I was 8 years old, I went to Elton John, and it was kind of blew me away. So I think musical, not necessarily playing instruments, mostly besides my grandfather, but just being introduced and having music be a big thing in our household.
Now, along with that, who are other musical influences that you use, so that when you're playing, you have their sound? Who are some of those people that get you going?
For me, a huge influence of mine growing up was Queen. Freddie Mercury to me is just, he is the epitome of what a front person and a vocalist should be. But I grew up on a lot of stuff. A lot of the classic rock stuff. Obviously Queen, Aerosmith, Bad Company. That little bit of Led Zeppelin. But taking that influence, I was highly influenced as a writer from a lot of the '90s grunge alternative scene. So you had Pearl Jam's, Soundgarden, Chris Cornell, bands like that. So it's strange in our band, we're kind of all over the place. That was my main influence. My drummer, grew up listening to so many different bands. He got into jazz fusion, to hardcore punk. Our bass player, Mike, was really big into 80s metal. And our guitar player, Joe, went for everything from like a Black Sabbath to very blues, Stevie Ray Vaughan kind of feel. So we're kind of all over the place in terms of inspiration when it comes to music.
I think that when you have an eclectic group of people that you are influenced by within a band, always kind of sets you apart from somebody else.
Yeah, and I think using those influences too. Like I was saying, our drummer Jay, he goes from everything from like Dennis Chambers and jazz fusion to like the Dead Kennedys all over the place. And usually, when we do interviews and we talk about that, they're like, that's a pretty wide margin of music. And even today, I think a lot of our main influences, we've been lucky enough to have a lot of friends that are touring bands that are just doing it really well and playing some good rock and roll. But bands like Alter Bridge, Seven Dust, people that are doing it the right way, that have the great attitude and work ethic that they have, it's definitely something to follow in terms of inspiration.
I agree with you 100%. Now, who does all the songwriting, and what is your songwriting process?
This is the best it's ever been, and I say that because as a songwriter, I always usually before I would bring down kind of a skeleton of a song, basic chord progressions and things like that, lyrics. I'd work out the melody. With this band, it's become, I hate using the word organic, but we really kind of get into a room and it could be a little riff, a little blip. We tend to just freestyle jam to warm up before we actually get into rehearsal, and we record everything. So even a little piece of something gets generated into a song. I mean, one of the newest songs that we have that we're working on for our new album, it's funny because I wrote the whole entire song as a skeleton, brought down on the guys, and we ended up literally just taking a bridge piece, and our drummer turned it from that into the intro, and then from there it just kind of grew. So us getting into a room together and just kind of allowing each other to things happen organically and just kind of smoothly. No one's really afraid to say, hey, that doesn't work, or hey, that does work. There's no ego in it. I hope that people can hear that in the music, because I think that's an important part of what we get out of our writing together.
Yeah, I think that is making of a successful band, when you can just, be honest with each other and not go along with everything. So kudos for that, for sure. Now, I read that you were voted Breakout Band and Singer and your Drummer of the Year in 2017 by Stone Chrome radio listeners. How amazing was that?
That was, there isn't even words to describe that. It was a lot of our fans, and I mean, we're a little Rhode Island band. It's great, to be on a stage with some amazing bands, especially when you're looking at bands like Pop Evil, and Greta Van Fleet, and Another Lost Year, and I mean, on and on. Just to even be recognized in a category with like Clinton from Another Lost Year, the gentleman from Pop Evil. I mean, some amazing vocalists and drummers and breakout bands, even Dollskin, who I believe ended up taking Band of the Year. But, we try to bring everyone that we're in contact with, whether it's in radio or it's in promotions, PR, we kind of try and make them a part of our family. And it's really important for us to kind of humanize what we do and to really appreciate things. And I think that's what's kind of driving us forward. So to get that response from people, not just hearing our music, but identifying us as good people, I think it speaks volumes. And I'll tell you, it was funny when we listened to the award show, myself and my fiance were sitting in my living room, and you don't expect your name to get called, especially with people like that. I mean, literally, Joe's funny. We were texting back and forth, all the guys, when it was happening. Joe's like, he's like, I'm running neck and neck with Zakk Wylde. I mean, come on, that's kind of out of control, But it's a testament to what we've done in terms of what we've written for music, and it's just exciting going forward. And I think it's something that it doesn't make us kind of rest on our laurels. It makes us work harder to be better musicians and write better music. So, I mean, I wish I had words to describe it, but that's quite an honor to be up there with those people.
I can only imagine. You deserve it, though, that's for sure. Now let's get into the EP Surfaces. I love every song on that. Because it's a no fuss, no muss, straightforward rock masterpiece. Can you touch base on the meaning of the 4 songs that are on there?
Sure. It's let me see. So a lot of the stuff that I end up writing, it's hard for me to write happy songs, because I always look at it's very lethargic for me. When I sit down to write, it's never really penned about me. It's penned about stuff I see or experience, and it could be firsthand or just something that I see outside of myself. And I always kind of go back to the word hope with a lot of stuff that I write, and it being that I think people want to feel that the stuff that they're going through, they don't feel like they're kind of backed into a corner on that. I come from a history and a background of, my day job. I've worked in mental health and substance abuse. I'm now currently working housing the homeless in Providence. So I've had a lot of experience with a lot of really incredible people and heard and seen a lot of stories. So there's a lot to pull from. So like the song Long Way Down, that was our first single that we released. That kind of stemmed from a friend of mine who was involved in a relationship. And, you have one person, I think, that changes it, or they're not comfortable in their own skin. So they kind of change with the crowd, and trying to, be something they're not in terms of a popularity. And I think at points it comes back to bite you because you realize that you're kind of throwing away the things that have stabilized your life. So that's kind of where Long Way Down came from. The Road I'm On and Face the Fire, they're kind of bookends of each other. It really has to do with addiction, and coming from a point where seeing people who have made it and become sober and found sobriety in many different ways, and being able to kind of light a torch for those people to have an opportunity to either find happiness in their life, find sobriety, showing that there's something to go forward for, and from there. So those songs kind of stem from that. Break is just, it's that feeling of, when you have friendships, you have relationships, you have things like that. And I think sometimes when you want things to work so much and you put in so much time and effort, and they don't work, I think sometimes we dangle ourselves a little bit longer than we should, and sometimes we get emotionally compromised for that. So that was kind of, and like I said, a majority of it really isn't me affected directly. It's really looking outside at other people, of the situations and things like that, and kind of how I perceive them and take them. So, there's a lot of hope, but there's a lot of, trying to be realistic with yourself in situations that we see and that we get ourselves in. So, I try to be as true and as I can with writing. It was funny writing because I do all the lyric writing, but in terms of the songs, we do it as a band. And I remember I had the Blackbird DVD from when Alter Bridge was writing their second album, and Miles Kennedy, they were writing one of their acoustic songs, and he said, it's funny when you're writing lyrics, it's so important because if you don't believe in what you're saying, when you're singing it to 10,000 people, they're going to know it. So you better make sure you believe in what you're saying. And I'll never forget that because it's very true. People can tell when you're just kind of phoning it in, and it definitely stands out.
That's awesome. And that was a question I was going to ask you. What best advice you've had, and that's probably the best advice you've had regarding the ins and outs of music, correct?
It is, and I think that when you get on stage, and it's funny because sometimes I get on stage and I'm a very different person off stage than I am on stage. Only being is that I think when you get wrapped up in the songs and you get wrapped up in the emotion, and it's funny when you hear other bands that have been around for 30, 40 years, even like the Eagles and Aerosmith, they ask, don't you get sick of playing Sweet Emotion? Well, maybe to an extent sometimes, but I think every time you get on stage, it kind of takes on a different feel. You have a different crowd, it's a different sound. There's a lot of things that go along with it. So I think that in terms of playing music and writing music and things like that, the most important thing is to appreciate it and to appreciate the people that are coming out, appreciate their time. It takes a lot. I always tell people, it takes a village to get to where you're at, and you need to build a good team of people that you trust in. And that's, I've been fortunate to have some people give me some really good advice in the business. And, I've had people who've been doing it on a bigger scale, who've been there, and that's including the manager that we're working with now. So I try and steal a little piece of information from everyone I can.
I appreciate the fact that you're honest with your lyrics because they transfer well to a fan, as I am, and you understand and you feel and you can even emote. Now, when I was listening to the whole EP, there were some points and times where I was just like, that's so profound, and that's a hard thing, I think, anymore for a lot of people bands to be able to, throw that kind of feeling out to a person where you're actually feeling yourself in the song.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing too, is that I think people want that now, and I think that we went away from that with rock and roll music for a while, and I think it changed because I think we got really wrapped up in beats and just the melody. And I think that's great and everything. But the stuff that I grew up on, you listen to something like Tears in Heaven by Eric Clapton, and then when you realize a song like that, what he's writing about, and you're listening to him sing it, you're there with him. You're almost experiencing, what he felt and the pain that he felt. And I think that going back to some of the 60s and 70s bands, they were writing about stuff. They were writing about stuff that happened with the war, and they were writing about life and relationships, and they were being real. And I think the one thing I never want to do is I don't like being very literal when I write, but I like it being enough where people understand it and they can have their own interpretation, because I want them to take it and I want them to get something from it that is important to them. And I try to work really hard on that, so that I don't like being so out in front with the message I'm trying to kind of convey. I want people to take that from the melodies, and I want it to jive with the music. Instead of writing a fast song with slow lyrics or vice versa, you want it to kind of find its way. And I try to work really hard at that. So I really appreciate you, feeling that way by hearing the music.
Absolutely. And I'm sure other people are doing the same. Now, you guys have opened for several national touring acts, such as Dead Set Society, the lead frontman from Hinder previous. How did it feel opening for all of them?
You get to see people who have done it on a big scale. And I think we'd all be lying if we said that, we weren't, it goes back. I played sports when I was a kid all the time. And there's a competitiveness to it. I think that, especially, I'll be honest, Dead Set Society, they were some of the nicest guys. I mean, it was really funny. That was our first show as a band, opening for those guys. It was a beautiful venue. And we go on stage, and I think maybe 30 seconds into the first song, I broke a string. So it was a big nightmare. And it was funny because those guys were standing on the side of the stage, and there was a beautiful green room right behind the stage. And they were literally contemplating running up and restringing my guitar for me, because they're like, we've been there. That stuff's happened. And I mean, I played music for 15 years, so I know how it feels. But to see a band who's, done some really great things, write some great music, for them to even contemplate something like that, just goes to show why those guys are doing what they're doing now, But like I said, we've been really lucky to, we just recently did an acoustic show opening for Saving Abel. We've played with Tantric in a foreign band that I was in. So you get to meet people that are doing it on the scale you want to. So you take a lot of mental notes. You ask a lot of questions. It's not, sometimes you want to fanboy over them if you've been listening to them for a long time. But at the same time, it's funny because I think they want to be treated like they're just, hey, they're a guy playing music and they love to do that. And when you come across people that want to be treated that way and take the time, like Scotty Bartlett from Saving Abel, I mean the whole band from Saving Abel. One of my friends is actually he's actually on tour with them right now as their merch guy, Dino. They're just really great guys. I mean, we did a dinner with them for the acoustic thing. One of my friends had put it on, who used to own a really great club. And we had this big clam bake, and they all sat with everyone at the tables. Before everybody ate, they came over with shaking hands with people they had known before from previous shows around the area. They had a big toast and everything. It was just a lot of fun. And to see a band who's been doing that for a long time, the good old Southern boys, they had some great hospitality. And I think you aspire to be in that position. So it's a great learning tool.
Awesome. Good to know. Now, as far as the band is concerned, what is your biggest challenge?
Money. No. Well, I mean, that's always part of it. I think, what it is, there are so many bands out there, and there's a lot of music that's out there. And I think you believe in your music. But I think we're in Rhode Island. The Northeast is a very, very difficult territory to work. I mean, the Providence scene, we've lost a lot of good clubs. Boston has dried out a lot in terms of a lot of clubs too. New Hampshire is actually one of the best around in terms of really good venues. They got some amazing venues in New Hampshire. The Northeast is very difficult. So people say you should try and conquer your territory first before you work off of that. It's very difficult. I mean, most people in the Northeast, and I'm sure they can attest to this when I say this, but we're very cold. We're very harsh, and it's a tough game to break in around here. So I think us being able to expand our territory, being able to hook up with some good bands and bridge ourselves outside of the Northeast and outside of New England, because I know that there's a lot of great venues that we would like to go to, a lot of great bands that we'd like to hook up with. So I think just kind of broadening ourselves in terms of what we can do in terms of shows. And that's one thing we're going to try to do is when we do, our next album is going to be a full-length album. And we're going to really throw everything at the wall. We've been talking to some great PR agencies about doing big campaigns and getting it out there, music video, the whole business. And we're doing everything ourselves, so we're really trying to be as economical as we can. I spend countless amounts of hours contacting people and, just promoting and getting out there and getting to know people and asking questions. So the time and the area that we're in, I think, kind of puts the 8-ball in front of us a little bit. So, but we're working hard to navigate around that, and I know that we will. And I think if we can get our music out to more people, I think we definitely believe that we could make a mark and really move on more.
Now, regarding this album, you were saying that you were going to put. What's the timeline for that? Can you tell us roughly?
We probably right now, I want to say we're close to about maybe halfway through writing. The one thing that we do when it comes to writing songs is, we're very quick at putting things together production-wise in terms of how we want the songs to be structured. Our bass player Mike talks about this all the time, and he's absolutely right with songs, is that you have to live with them. You have to play them. You might know the notes you're playing and everything, but it's not the notes you're playing, it's how you're playing them. And it sounds weird, but there's a certain emotion attached to how you're playing a certain note on a guitar or the drums. There's a certain feel. And then I think when you get to a certain point, you feel it and it feels right. It kind of lines up in that pocket. So every song kind of has its own thing. We're hoping, because I know that usually around March or April is a really good time to really start getting out new stuff. So we're aiming to hopefully have everything written and wrapped up. We'd like to have more songs written than we actually do put on the album, just so we have some choices. So we're hoping the beginning of the year we're going to get into the studio and really start cranking out tunes. And the last time we went in, we have our stuff down really good. So we go in, we have all our pre-production all taken care of. So we know the ifs and ands. So at that point, it's not a matter of knowing how to play the songs. It's about making them sound the way you want to. So we're hoping beginning of the year, we'll be in the studio, and hopefully we'll have that out by end of March, beginning of April for a launch.
I wish you the best of luck on that. That's going to be amazing. I can't wait to hear what comes next.
Thank you so much. We're very excited.
Now, what advice would you give to someone who wanted to start a band?
Work harder than everybody else. It's funny that we call her our den mother. My bass player's wife, Kara, who's wonderful, but she kind of keeps us reined in, and it's funny. I think they laugh at me because I work like a maniac in terms of promoting, and I built a whole entire website. I'm constantly marketing and doing stuff. But I think you have to work harder than the next person. And I've talked to a lot of people, and I always say, if you're not working, you're dying in this business. And I think that's part of it. But I think that you have to, don't try and write things that aren't you. If you start writing and making yourself sound outside the box, and it's not you, like I said before about the whole Miles Kennedy thing, he said, it's going to stand out. And question for you too, how many times have you seen a band that came out with a really great first album, and then the second album, it sounded nothing like them at all? And I'm sure that there's some, maybe record label, maybe whatever else, management decisions in there too. But I think when you go back to it, I think you want to hear growth in the music. I think you want to hear the band push each other, whether it's the singing or the actual parts that you're writing and playing. But I think that you don't have, if something's working, don't break it and try and make it something else. Just make it better. Make it something bigger and better, and continue on with what you're being successful with. Don't try and change something that's working. And I think, you got some bands out there right now that are they're doing it. There's a lot of great literal rock and roll bands out there right now. And I think that's what you have to get to, you know.
Well, I expect big things for you guys. You're, like I said, you're just the things that you've been saying as far as how the band mechanics work, and, you know, appreciating the tips and stuff you receive from people in the music business is, you know, makes it 10 times better. So good luck with everything there. Are there any upcoming shows that you'd want to talk about?
Sure. We actually have coming up, it's the 27th. We're doing the 4th Annual Rock and Blues Festival in here in Rhode Island in East Providence, outside, which should be a lot of fun. And then we're very excited. We don't have the exact venue or details yet, but we are going to be joining our friends in Another Lost Year. They're going to be coming to Rhode Island, and we're going to be playing with those guys. We were hoping, hopefully we were going to get a Blacklight District with them, but they're not going to be on those select tour dates. So we're kind of bummed because they're really great guys, and they're on fire right now. But it will be also Another Lost Year, and I believe there'll be another act to be announced, which is very cool. So that's coming up on June 16th here in Rhode Island. Still waiting for the venue. There's a couple of venues we're navigating right now. So, but we're very excited. It's been a few years since we got to play with Another Lost Year, and Clinton and those guys they're just fantastic people, and you know, they just play really great music, and we definitely look forward to playing with those guys.
Is there anything else you would like to say to your fans, and your new fans and ones you're going to be gaining after this, for sure, that we haven't touched upon in this interview?
Hold on, because we're coming with some really good stuff, and we're very proud of. We've definitely felt a lot of growth in the music. We really are really excited about the new stuff that we're writing, and we're expanding a lot of stuff too. We actually just launched a store on our website, which is psyclemusic.com, PSYCLE, and we're going to have some merch that's coming up. We have a couple of t-shirts that we just designed, and we'll have a bunch of other stuff like that, so people can now start going out and grabbing some gear and you know, kind of repping us wherever they're at. So I'm sure some of those t-shirts will be flying around the country, which is fantastic. But if we're in the area, you know, check us out, spread the word, find us on social media. You know, we've got every social media known to man. Not that I like all of them, but you know, you got to operate as many platforms as you can. So, you know, it's all about the music. So we hope people continue to follow us and believe in our music. And, you know, we can't thank everyone enough for their support, especially people like yourself. And, you know, radio stations, internet radio stations, everybody. It's been amazing to see a little band from Rhode Island, you know, kind of pushing through. So we're very appreciative of that.
Well, we, like I said, we enjoy your music very much, and we enjoy playing your music so we can get you out there. So if there's ever anything you need or anything, please do not hesitate to contact us, because we're all for helping you out.
That's fantastic. I can't thank you guys enough.
Seth, it was super nice talking to you. Thank you for taking the time here at the Manamal Streaming Radio. It's been a total pleasure. If you like in your face hard rock, you need to check out Psycle's EP Surfaces. It's amazing. This is Misti-Dawn with the Manamal Streaming Radio. Have a great night.